hello from Sweden. So we are 3 people sitting here, so I thought we can start to introduce ourselves. So I'm Hanna Isaksson, and I've been a project manager for this residency up here.
And my name is Lantto, and I work as a prison officer in the prison in Luleå.
And I'm Henrik Wied. I'm working as a coordinator for security.
Yes, so I work as the manager of Resurscentrum for konst in Luleå, in the region of Norrbotten. And this is a center for professional artists and craftsmen in the region. And our task is to help them in different ways so they can be able to live and work up here in Arctic Sweden from what we call the periphery. And so I also do other type of projects. I help municipalities with different commissions, public art, for example. We do exhibitions, education programs, and different type of development projects. So this is just one part of my work. Let's see. And this is the region of Norrbotten. It's in the Arctic Sweden, so up in Haparanda-Tornio, you have the coast to Finland, and then, of course, on the left side, you have Norway. And it's a big area, 1/4 of Sweden, and about 260,000 people live here. And in Luleå, at the coast, is the biggest city, so that's about 80,000 people. So big area, but not so many people that lives here. And about 4 years ago, we started to build a residency program up here, and it's called Swedish Lapland Artist in Residency. And if you want to follow that project or see our open calls and so forth, you can go to the webpage and sign up to our newsletter. And it was in this project that we also met our partners for this project, for the Wellbeing Residency project. So 2018, we had a big conference in Luleå. It was one of the Wellbeing Residency think tanks that previous speakers talked about, that we've been having in each country. And it was a really big interest. I think we had like 50 or 60 people that signed up and came, and also Henrik, that's sitting down here, was one of the participants. So from that, when we were gonna choose the place to do the residency tryout, we thought about different possibilities in the region, but I knew that they had been to the conference, and I was also very interested in working with the prison. And it also turned out that we had 2 local artists, Annika Persson Åkerblom, that's in this picture, and Helena Bergman, that you will meet. They were also planning for a project at the prison. So I talked to them if we could collaborate, and we decided to do so. So we had a meeting. See if next slide will come. Yeah. So when we decided the place, the process went quite fast, and I think that's also because the prison is very used to work with big projects, and they are also used to work with artists. And they had this discussion with Annika and Helena to build up a a form of an artist studio in the prison. So I think you guys were also very keen that something was going to happen at the place. So from the first meeting, 18th of November, we had an open call that went out the 26th. So that was quite fast. And since this is an international project, we had one local artist, but then we also had money to invite an international artist. But there was a language requirement from the prison that the person was supposed to speak Swedish. And since we know that we have a big population of Swedish speaking Finnish people, we decided to invite someone from Finland, so that was our target group. And from the beginning, we also had an idea that we were going to work with a media artist that had worked a lot with like video and sound, maybe light installations, because we wanted to do something in the courtyard. But later on, it turned out that we couldn't do that because of security reasons. We did some interviews in January. I think it was 6 or 7 people we interviewed via Zoom. And then we invited Sebastian to come to Luleå for the first trip. And I think that was a really important thing in the process, that we had like a shorter trip for Sebastian to come to meet Helena that he was supposed to work with, to establish a contact between them, but also to see the prison and the surroundings of Luleå. So when he came back for the residency, everything wouldn't be totally new to him, and also to be able to go home and then have contact with Helena and start planning for the workshops. Because when you see in the space, you know a little bit more of what's possible to do and what you can bring into the prison and so forth. And due to the COVID, we had to stop the residency 2 weeks prior to the date. But the artists solved this problem, I think, in a good way, and you will talk about that. And I think it's also important to say that it's been 2 processes for the artists. So it's been one process to work with the inmates, but then it's also been their own artistic process, and that will result in an art piece that we will put in the courtyard. So we will also explain that process a bit more. Maybe you can swap picture them, Mara, to yeah, so some of the important lessons: be aware of what's possible to do regarding to the security. So we had to change like the whole idea about working with media and sound. And that, of course, in the open call, when we were asking for that, we had a selection of artists. So I think if we would have asked for another type of artist, maybe we would have other applications. But we solved this in a good way anyway. Of course, language skills in case you work with international artists. And I think for us it was super important with the interviews, because it's very difficult to say if it's the right person just through reading the applications. So it was really important to see if the person was suitable to work in this type of environment. And I think for us it was also really important that the staff was involved in the whole process, and especially in the interviews, because I think Henrik here, you spotted Sebastian quite early, and you worked so long in this environment, so you know what kind of people who works with the inmates and what type of personality that can work in this environment. So that was very important. Because I think for us that come from the art world, we were more looking at, what have this person done artistically, where have they exhibit, what do their work looks like. So it was a really good discussion for us to have and to find like the common pieces from both of these worlds that you need. And I was super positive. There was 2 artists that they could support each other and that they could talk to each other after the days and also plan together what to do. And that it was very flexible, and the process was the most important thing, not the result. And I think especially for these boys that it was fun and that it was creative. And then of course safety, and when you work in the prison you get a safety course before you work there, and I know the artists felt really good about this, and that brought them a sense of safety to know how to act in different situations that could arise. And also that one guard was with the group and working with the group the whole time, and he was also participating like in the workshops doing the job, so he was not just like sitting next to them. So I think this has been good lessons that we take with us, and we will probably talk about this more. So that was my last slide, and I will let Anders do a presentation of the prison and the facilities.
Yeah, this is a picture of Luleå prison. I work as a prison guard in normal time. I'm a big boss in the summer when the ordinary boss is on vacation. And I work together with Henrik here, he's a security manager. It's a very small facility. Actually, it's the smallest prison in Sweden with only 9 inmates. And we are in the same area as a detention center with 30 inmates. Other prisons have departments or blocks with young adults, as I prefer to call it, instead of calling them juveniles, because it's young adults and they are between 18 and 21 to be placed in prisons like this. But it is a prison, it's not a social institution for troubled kids or something like that. They have committed real severe crimes, and the Swedish justice system is a little lighter and a little softer on these young kids from the age of 18 to 21, and it's a scale that you can get. Maybe if you get 4 years in prison, if you're 18 you get 2.5, if you're 20 you get 3, and so on, up to 21. But it's a debate in Sweden now if we will have this system in the future, because they think it's the rate of crimes in these ages is getting up. And but we think it's very good for young adults to be in small units like this. And the idea is, of course, to prevent bad influence from older inmates who are more experienced concerning crimes, and to get them to get even more criminal when released from prison. But it's part of the Swedish correction system, and it's the only prison, apart from Haparanda also, who is only having young adults. And we have, there's nothing different from other prisons, from adult prisons concerning occupation and paroles and permissions and things like that. We have other 7 other facilities in Sweden with young adults, and we are with Haparanda, 2 of them up here in Norrbotten, in north part of Sweden. But our clients arrives from mostly the big city areas, Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, and the suburbs around those areas. And when they arrive to us, they don't think they have come to some very nice place, very up far in the north, close to the Arctic Circle. It's very cold, it's very dark if they come in the winter, and they are very negative. But we try to, in a small unit, work very close with them and build a relation with our inmates, and not to be as tough and demanding and gives orders and commands so much. We work very much with the staff to build relation and to show empathy and to listen and to work together with the inmates and be role models as secure adults against these young kids, because often or every time it's very traumatic experiences in their past, of course, and it comes from very troubled backgrounds. So that's also a challenge for people who comes from the outside to handle these kids who can be very emotionally unstable and not so. You can expect more sometimes from a 21-year-old man, but you can consider them sometimes as in the age of 15 or 16 emotionally, mostly because of drug use and the traumatic experiences. So this is an overview of the prison in Luleå. It's close to the university, and it's pretty much in the center of Luleå, but it's hidden behind those woods. So we can get along pretty good out there. And the most common crimes for these guys who comes here is violent crimes, theft, and drug-related crimes. And we have a treatment programs who we want everyone to participate in, and it's individual programs and it's in group. We have vocational training, masonry, carpentry, metalwork, and so on. And we have, of course, education with a full-time teacher on the prison. So we try to have other projects like this when people come from the outside and also within the walls, like a greenhouse. We try to keep animals like chicken and sheep, and we try to get different kind of occupation for the different kind of individuals. So we have, and therefore I think it's very nice to have people who come in from the outside, like this artist with different perspective. And with some alternate things to do in otherwise very routine-like system. And whatever they do that they don't do normally is a nice change in the everyday life in prison. So if we can show them other occupation in areas that they are not familiar with, it will give them an input for creative thinking a little bit outside the box, and can make maybe they can be interested in that. And doing it after release from prison. And we also see positive effects and benefits from, we think it's a good thing for the prison staff to get in touch with other people with different competences, to learn from them and maybe absorb some ideas for the future work with our clients. And meetings and projects like this helps breaking up the stereotype thinking, and gives them and us the chance to see things from another perspective. And it also gives the guys who's involved in projects like this calm and stress relief, which we think is very important. And of course, the clients feel that they accomplished something, and it's and that they could finish a task that is set for them. And it will give them confidence and a higher self-esteem, which is crucial for these guys. And that's really the main point of our work, to help people building up themselves, to help them to get more self-esteem and more confidence, and to believe in themselves that I can accomplish things, I can do things, I am good at things. And to see something practical shaping in front of their eyes and to leave a result is very rewarding for them. And we also see benefits that everything the staff can do with the boys builds on their relation to one another. And that's a very important and something we work for hard every day, that we, after a project like this, can get along better and builds trust between the staff and the kids. And then in the long run, it will be easier to work with the motivation and the life-changing decisions that we want them to make. And everything we do that doesn't means orders and commands and do that, we can work together with something creative. It builds a trust and it builds a relation that give this trouble guy more security, and he can also open up in later discussions. And of course, it creates a pleasant and nice physical environment that normally isn't that appealing with the high fences and barbed wire. So every type of color and every type of different shapes is welcome in prisons like this, of course. Then it's a challenge for us, but I think Henrik is very good at that, and to explain to people who come from the outside, give the information about all the regulations and security issues, and to try to explain to these artists, in this case, what they are dealing with, what can happen, and what we're not allowed to bring into the prison, and we can't build something on the wall that they can climb up and get away. But if you tell too much about the guys, and we can for obvious reasons, don't tell too much about the personal life, but the artists have to find that out themselves. And you can't put a label on these guys. They are individuals and very, very different, of course. And some show a lot of emotion, and some people don't show any emotion. And you think that they are not interested, but they may be interested, but they're not showing it to the outside. And they have, of course, some of them have some mental disorders and stuff like that. And so you don't get rewarded always. They don't tell you, oh, this is nice. Oh, I think you're a very good person or something. You have to see their progress and that they're moving forward as a reward from myself. And if they're staying with the project, and sometimes they can be very fired up one day, and the other day, I don't want to be part of this anymore. So you have to be prepared and mentally prepared. Don't see it as a personal failure if they don't go along. But I think in this case, I think they were interested in all the time. I had some positive feedback afterwards. So that's about it, what I had to say. Yeah.
Thank you. So I don't know if we said that, but maybe that will be in the artist's presentation. But the artists were working with 4 of the boys. And I think you selected which ones.
Well, the staff group
chose which ones. Yeah. So then we are very keen on listening to the artists and your experience.
I don't know how we should start, but I think Sebastian is going to talk about the most of this project for us. I'm Helena Bergman, and I live in Luleå, and I have my place there. So I put it over to Sebastian here. Thank you.
So before I start with we start with the presentation, I would just briefly go through the table of contents. We had a bunch of different workshops in both February and March, and before the COVID-19 hit us. But now I would like to present. Sorry. All right. we are jumping into the first workshop, which took place on the 10th of February this year in Luleå. And we started with working with clay, but before that, there was like an introduction day at the detention center. We got a security review with Henrik, and we meet Eva. And afterwards, we got a guided tour in both the detention center and in the prison. Then we kick off the project with the first workshop. The 4 guys, who we're gonna call A, K, N, and W, and then the guard T, all got a chunk of clay in front of them on the work table in the break room, which you saw previously. So the guys were experimenting with basic shapes, which then were cut in half and to be sent to the person on the right. After a while, we noticed that clay characters started to emerge. And at the end of the workshop, we discussed ideas of building together something big out of the snow cube that the guys built on the prison yard the previous week. And here we realized that the response was quite minimal. So we decided for the guys that we will sculpt a big heart celebrating the Valentine's Day was coming up. And here are some pictures of the clay figures that the guys produced the first day. And I remember that I gave like a small positive note for one of them, like, oh, that's nice, how did you do that? And immediately the atmosphere changed. Like suddenly everyone wanted that positive feedback. And then and there during the first day, I kind of we realized that we need to work like a group, not like zooming in on one project or one person. So that was very useful immediately the first day. And here we see the little sort of sketch for the heart. And then much later, we noticed that someone built a heart and painted it red. We don't know who did it, but we think that was a anonymous little nice feedback for us. So then the second day, the snow sculpture. We are on Tuesday, 11th of February. We have to be careful with what tool we bring into the facility and count them so nothing disappears. We started the day by explaining in the yard that we first need to draw a work plan on the cube that you can see on the picture. Then we cut, carve, and grind the snow. Finally, it shall be colored. The guard that was with us brought a box of spray paint, and those spray cans immediately brought life to the guys. They wanted to get loose on that. But we needed to work on the snow first. So me and Helena, we measure and draw with a pen to demonstrate how to gain an insight into creating a 3-dimensional sculpture. After that, we more or less gave orders what needed to be done to continue. The guys started collaborating around the cube from all directions. Afterward, they tweaked the sculpture with spray paint. Graffiti-like paintings come up, and there was a lot of talking between the guys and the guard about what can and can't be written. So here we have the final piece, a colorful heart inside the yard. And the second workshop, it went well. We are in, it's Monday morning, the 2nd of March, and time for the third workshop. We are doing sketchbooks. So I arrived in Luleå the evening before, and I was very psyched to really start the project. We started the day by making collage on cardboard, which we later worked as the covers for the guys' painting books or art journals. In the books, they can sketch, paint, and draw. The workshop works well. In the beginning, they are silent and tear paper with the glue and cardboard in A4 format. After a while, we give them newspaper where they can search pictures for the cover. Then the atmosphere turns quite lively. And Gart T, who was with us during the Snow Cube, he's with us again. And we realize it's really great because it creates a certain security for the guys to explore Helena and Sebastian. They know T, but not us, but he's there for comfort. We continue after the fika break with painting with watercolor. We introduce the technique of experimenting with salt and water. The guys immediately go full speed and uses all colors at once, and the result is very messy. After a while, some get tired, while a few remain focused and continue to experiment with new colors. Next slide, please. And here we have the art journals. And as you can see from the pictures, the guys cut out from the magazines, it was quite teenagey, like half-naked girls and cars and fancy watches and stuff like this. So we thought that was rather interesting. But they were the art directors behind their books, so they could do pretty much what they wanted. Next slide, please. And here, could we go back one? Thank you. So this is just a example of the first watercolor experiment. We weren't really trying to achieve something really grand, just playing around and get a touch how it feels and what happens when you mix color with water and you pour salt over them and watch the crystals come to life and stuff like that. So just really getting familiar with the technique. And I bet they haven't been painting for a very long time and they seem to enjoy it. So that was good. Let's continue to the next slide and the next day. Workshop number 4 on Thursday the 5th. So we didn't have like from Monday to Friday. It was a bit more random. 3-4 times a week. This one was a portrait with the wrong hand. We started the day by giving out the new books, and then we had a fun activity by drawing each other's portraits in sketchbooks. In order to make the task more playful, we add rules that you should draw with the wrong hand, and in addition, you can't lift the pencil from the paper. So automatically, it will be more like a game than rather like a drawing session or how to draw a face. Then we change pairs after each picture. It was like a 1 minute to 1.5 minute, 20 seconds, so on. So they were really like scribbles. In the end, you get your own sketchbook back with everyone's portrait of yourself. And everyone thought this assignment was really funny. And after that, we draw a circle in the book, and then freely inside started to just scribble in it. And the task was to try to find shapes and to work with later on. The figure will work as an inspiration for the upcoming tinfoil character that we were going to make. This task is also very much appreciated, and the atmosphere was really great. So we set the books aside and started working with tinfoil. And then after that, we wrapped it in plaster or gypsum. So we were making these small statues. And the figures will finally be glued on a MDF disc, which is approximately 15 to 15 centimeter. Next slide, please. This is me in my art journal, and it's like a minute and a half sketch that one of the guys made. I'm really stoked about it. Next slide, please. And here we see the circle idea. So just randomly draw something and then trying to find something. I believe this is a dog or a fox that one of the guys found in his circle. And next slide, please. So we are now on a Friday morning, 6th of March, and also the following Monday, which is a 2-day workshop. We're working with sculptures made from the circle that we draw. So the guys continue to complete the plaster figures, and we made sure that the figures sit well on the board. Suddenly a conflict occurs just before the coffee breaks because the fika snacks are missing. So there were no buns or nothing sweet with the afternoon coffee. And the inmates were really disappointed and angry, so the atmosphere changed. And even 2 of the guys started baking their own sweets. After a very prolonged coffee break, it was impossible to get the concentration back. So Helena and me decided to end the day a bit earlier. And after a weekend, on Monday, the guys were happy to continue with the sculptures with good energy and focus. And we needed to fix some smaller details. But here on Friday, because of the fika incident, we also realized that how quickly the atmosphere in such an environment can change, and you shouldn't be like follow your own calendar fully. You need to be flexible. It's super important. So here we knew that from before, but here we really realized it. Next slide, please. And here are the plaster figures that the guys created, painted with some gold paint and acrylics. And next slide, please. Pixel pictures, Monday the 9th, workshop 6. In the afternoon, after the plastic figures, we continue with pixel painting. We tried to facilitate this workshop on Friday after the coffee incident, but it just didn't work out. The task requires concentration because you have to follow examples yourself. So this workshop is a bit like building with pearl plates or Lego. You have a smaller picture and then you enlarge it by yourself on a bigger piece of paper. The guys who usually sit opposite of each other there in the break room is now asked to sit on the long side of the table next to each other. And this workshop started well, but soon the concentration is lost and the work continues in a more direction-free art. It doesn't really matter if you don't follow the pixel idea. The main thing is the process and building a picture yourself and still getting familiar with the colors. And now I would like to get the next slide. Thank you. And here are some examples what was born this Monday. It was supposed to be a smiley face, and then you kind of got tweaked a bit, and then the words were added. And the guys seem to enjoy this workshop a lot with the freedom of just painting. Next workshop. Tuesday, 10th of March, workshop 7. Paint large with outlines of different objects. So this day we were painting outside in the large hall that you saw a picture in the previous presentation. And we tried to to have a new work environment and see how that would work. We start by creating large pieces of paint, shapes that will merge into each other. The idea for the guys is to see how color is mixed. For example, when a blue and a yellow shape are being mixed. We noticed that the mixing color was tricky for the guys, so we wanted to focus on that part today. We also explained how to gently mix colors when painting and not just carelessly throwing it everywhere on the paper. This day gets quite messy when it occurs that the guys have been outside ice skating earlier. So they were tired when they arrived, but also super excited because one of them had birthday. So this fika coffee break takes a bit longer because of celebration with song and cake. And that was really lovely to experience. And the afternoon after the cake party was a bit short and unfocused. So we were talking more with the guys while they were painting or just hanging out there in the hallway. And we got the knowledge that some of them brought their work 2-dimensionally and other 3-dimensionally. So they were, even though they were just 4, they were already there. So some differences in what they wanted to do in the workshop. Next slide, please. And here we see the results of the big papers. The idea was we were aiming to get more of the second one with the clear shapes and the clear colors, but the guys they started like that, but then concentration or inspiration changed the course of the artwork. So it was more free art again. Next slide, please. And this was workshop number 8. We were working with markers. So today we have a new experimental workshop where we were dropping ink on something called UV paper. The technique allows you to see what happens when colors flow into each other on the paper. The guys get an insight in how the colors interact with each other, a bit like watercolor, but livelier. Today, one of the guys is on a leave of absence, so he's on like vacation or day off. And you noticed in the group dynamic, it was completely off. The atmosphere, which usually was good, felt today irritating and restless. Nevertheless, I remember this day that one of the guys who had, especially in the beginning of the whole project, hard time sitting down. He's kind of hard focusing and not seemed so interested. Today, when we had the fika coffee coming up, he didn't even look up from his paper, and so because he was so immersed and so into watching the ink flows on the paper. So that felt really good. That knowing that he really enjoyed, especially this workshop. And next slide, please. So the last one, Tuesday, 17th of March, outline. Today, the guys and the guards are given an assignment of painting big together. A paper is rolled out on the floor in the hall, and there they will collaborate and draw each other's contours. We noticed in the previous workshop that many people like to scribble, and the idea was that the task is to fill the contours with scribbles made by thinner markers. They were concentrated, and also the guards appreciated a large-scale workshop. And next slide, please. And here we see another picture from the center, and 2 of the guys sitting in peace and drawing whatever comes to mind on the big piece of paper. And here I want to add that me and Helena was not on the location because of COVID-19. So this was our attempt to have like a workshop where we weren't there, we just help from the outside. And next slide, please. Additional artistic embellishment. So this was the artistic project before and after the COVID-19 outbreak. Another task for me and Helena during the residence project was to conceptualize a new art for the Juvenile Detention Centre. After the guided tour in February, we both agreed on that the courtyard's old decoration needed a facelift. But we also been thinking, especially when I was back in Helsinki between introduction day and the workshops, that what else could be done. But as we already heard, because of all the restrictions of a prison, it's not a simple task to find solutions for such buildings. And then the work that Helena and me produce, it should fit the environment, but moreover, it should communicate positivity for the inmates. We wanted to go away from very figurative art and work more conceptually. And we got the knowledge that there has been a lack of affirmative words in the guys' lives, which we, in the previous presentation, these topics was also touched, like you're good, you can do it, you're all right. These kind of words has been missing in the guys' lives. So combining these missing puzzle pieces with the humanistic terminology ended up being a very suitable solution for our art project. And I would like to introduce it in the next slide. And here we see the courtyard with a digital sketch of our idea. The puzzle pieces symbolizes the positive words, and then the bigger piece on the wall symbolizes the kind of the healing process during such a stay in a prison, and trying to find yourself and find the missing links, and when you're out, you're a better version of yourself. And then next slide, please. So on the left side, we have the sketches for the single puzzle pieces with the words strong, weak, brave, sad, happy, afraid, well, normal, and unique. And here on the right side, we have the artworks in the making. And this happened during summertime, and I would really myself love to be taking part of also making this, but because of the corona, I was stuck here in Finland and still am. And next slide, please. And here we can see a riot police helmet that the guys turn into art pieces, one from Helena and one for me, as a thank for the weeks we were spending time with them. And this was the last slide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sebastian and Helena. So now I would like to open the floor for the questions. So I remind you that you can write the questions in the chat box, or you can signalize with the reactions. Let's say thumbs up. That would be for the question. While people are thinking, I would like to ask a few questions from my side. The first thing the first question that pops in my mind is for the detention center representatives. So you mentioned before that there are some restrictions for the artists for coming in, and I was curious, what are the restrictions? What can and what can't they do? What can they bring and what is forbidden?
It's things that can make harm to one another, sharp objects, or things that can help them to communicate with the outside world. Those kind of things is strictly forbidden, and it's not easy to know exactly what objects are dangerous, or it's easier to understand what kind of things, electronic things, you can't bring to the prison, but they are very inventive, and some stuff that you leave after you can be used with a little bit of modification as a tool or a weapon. So we are a little bit concerned that we keep those we can work with them, but we take them away and keep them in secure places afterwards. Some stuff like that, and that you don't go places where you don't supposed to go. But that's an ongoing work for us in the process to, of course, look after them and don't leave them alone in an environment like this. You're not allowed to leave people from the outside alone in the prison. And also that you are aware of that you can't talk about what happens inside the walls, of course. You have to sign a paper, and but that is pretty obvious, I think. But they're a close, hidden world that people don't know about. They have experience from prisons in movies and stuff like that, and it's not very familiar to the real world, especially not a small prison like ours. But it's for their own safety and the inmates' safety, and also for the regulation and the concern of the victims of the crimes they have committed. So we have to think of all these aspects all the time. But I don't think it's a big problem, and we are very open-minded, and maybe in bigger prisons with higher walls and even more barbed wire and higher security thinking, projects like this is more difficult to accomplish. But we think that we have a good knowledge of these guys and what to expect from them, and if we think that it would be a problem or a security problem, we wouldn't do projects like this. But you can never be 100% sure, because it's human beings. But if you don't try, you will miss out on very many positive effects. So we are happy, and the guys are happy.
Great, thank you. We have a question in the chat box for the artists from Aya from Latvia. Can the artist speak a little more about the advantages of working as a pair rather than an individual? Maybe some examples?
Definitely. It was really super nice to work with Helena. And especially after every day when we were driving back to the Luleå center, we had like an immediate feedback session for ourselves. What went good, what went bad, what could have been done better, what did we learn that day? So after every single workshop, the minute we stepped out from the prison area, we started chatting about this. And also just throwing ideas and brainstorming. Like what worked, what could be modified to suit the guys better.
I will add additional question from my side. I was curious, how long time did you have to spend before the workshops by just inventing the workshops? So the
planning time. Do you mean the planning time before?
Planning time, yes.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time to. I talk a lot to Henrik because it's important to put your stuff when you take it with you. You can have all the stuff with you if you can use them. And I have to ask them all the time, what could I have with me? And I have a lot of bags with things that could give me a plan A, plan B, plan C, so that we can continue with our work with the guys. I think it's very important to have a plan A and B and C, and have a second artist to talk about and choose things to do with the guys, because it gives a lot to talk to each other when you have persons that doesn't really, you don't know them at all, and you have to go by scratch to learn to know them. And what do you think, Sebastian?
Agreed. And also during the workshops, some of the guys, they work more individually and others require more help. So if there were only been one person there, even though it was a very tiny group, I think it would have been a great challenge.
Yeah.
But working as a pair was definitely a plus.
Thank you. Another question?
Can I just add that between Sebastian's first trip and the start of the residency, I think you had about 3 weeks that you were in contact with each other before the residency.
Yeah.
We could start talking about what could we do together and what kind of workshops. And I think also Annika Persson Åkerblom had some discussions with you guys also about this.
Yeah, she also gave me a lot of ideas how we can start up and make the guys want to do something instead of just sitting there and don't know what to do, and start with some playing and start with some exercises that makes them into the process and make them work with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question from Bojana, and that goes to Hanna and Andres. Will you consider with continuing the residency / collaboration in the future?
Well, from my side, I would definitely like to proceed and to keep doing this. I mean, it's always a question of financing it. But I think if we have the money, then it would be possible to continue. I have to look at you guys.
Yeah. For us, it's a win-win situation. We don't mind doing stuff like this. It's a great experience for us and the guys.
And I think, and right now, Helena and Annika is also waiting for a reply from a big grant giver in Sweden to see if it's possible. I think you applied for money for 1 year, 2 years, or something like that, to build up this art studio. 2 years, yeah. So in case or in case you guys get this money, there's also maybe a possibility to collaborate and makes it easier when you would have that in place. So, but in some way we hope to work together, and I know that you guys are very open for other people who wants to come and collaborate with you.
Great. So then we have several questions. I will read them one by one. So this is from Jose, I guess if I pronounce correctly, pedagogue of Norrbotten's Museum in Luleå. Thank you for the interesting presentation. I have some questions. So the first one is for the artists. Did you explain to the inmates at some moment during the project what is your own creativity process? and the words you create for the installation and the colors you choose have some relationship?
For the first question, I was expecting it, but still I got surprised. The inmates were not that interested in who you are, where you're from, what's your background. Maybe they're just playing it cool and just like, whatever. Or maybe they were interested. That I will never know. I have explained a bit. I remember when I was playing ping pong in the break with one of them, I talked about when I served in the military in Finland, how my experience was that. And then we talked a bit about street art with a few of them. But otherwise, not so much. They weren't asking. And
the second question was about the colors.
Yeah, the colors. We wanted to bring colors to the courtyard, and we thought a little toned down, like Art Deco-ish color palette would be suitable. Not too bright, but still definitely not black and gray, and having some dots of light and color in the environment. And we thought those colors work well with the terms.
All of the yards are like red walls, all of there. So we wanted to make something to pop out.
The second part of the question goes to people from the detention center. How was the impact of the project in the inmates after finish the project? Changes in their self-esteem and confidence? What some inmates continue to create art themselves. Maybe could be a good idea create an exhibition in the prison with the works of the inmates. Now they have good skills and good start point to do it.
Yeah, they were all positive afterwards when we talked to them about what happened, and they were a little bit disappointed that they couldn't go through with the project all the way. But at least one of the guys has left us recently for his release. But he painted a lot afterwards, the weeks afterwards, and sort of came into something new. And it was very positive to see. And he didn't talk about it a lot, but we saw that he in his spare time he spent a lot of time in we have a sort of creative room, a little bit of a workshop there with pencils and watercolors. And he wanted to post all of his paintings on the walls, and we said you can fill the walls with all his paintings. But also in his room, he's decorated his room with 3 or 4 paintings. The other guys, not so much afterwards. They spoke about it. They enjoyed the process, but not so much that they continued painting. And it's a little bit now and then. Sometimes they want to be part of it, and sometimes if some other people start, they can join. But especially one guy, the K guy in your group, it was very creative afterwards.
And the pieces, I think, was exhibited throughout the residency, if I'm correct, and also on display afterwards. And but you were also the thought was also to have like a bigger exhibition in the end of the residency period. But it was and the room that you worked in is also like the kitchen and where they eat and hang out, I think, and do other activities. And it's also if you're going out to the courtyard for like a smoke, or just if you want to hang out there, you have to pass it. So it's like a space where yeah.
It's the center of the facility where they spend all their working days. So they're on display, all these things that they created.
Thank you. Pablo, I see that your hand is raised.
Thanks, Yanis. Thanks a lot. I am Pablo from Finland. I am a clown. And thank you very much to everyone. It was a wonderful presentation, and I liked the prison, well, how it looks, and also how you speak about the reality. No, sometimes the artists, we are so romantic, and you were so clear and honest to say no, it's not easy to work in a prison. And Helena, thanks a lot. I think you speak wonderful English. Some people maybe speak better, but what you say is important. And thanks a lot. And Sebastian, it's super nice to see young people from urban capital cities go to the rural areas and working together in the rural areas. This is that connection I love a lot. Usually the contemporary artists or the young people, they feel really worried about Instagram, about what they're gonna think about if I am a social artist or if my reputation. And you were super, your project was so beautiful, powerful, multidisciplinary, and really good. And I was thinking in one project, there is it's exactly the same than yesterday. In the rural areas in the north of the Nordic countries, you have problems to engage artists. It's difficult to find artists. And you were talking, Hanna, Anders, about the language barriers. And you have to find artists from Finland, because in the prison there is a big population of Finnish Swedish speakers, and it's more easy. It's just like there is also another solutions, more simple. You can find international artists who speak Swedish in your country. There is a lot migrant artists in your country. I can give you a lot links from artistic and cultural associations, and you can find their specific and with really good quality and resolve one simple problem. And the language barrier is not a problem. I was in a project with a diversity agent, Sebastian, in Helsinki, and I put the links in the chat. I recommend you. They are really good. I think you can collaborate with them and explain your ideas, because they were working with the prison museum, how to make the institution more open, more inclusive, how to, this institutional racism, how to improve through the arts. They develop a project. I put the links in the chat, and Mr. Garrido, he was make a suggestion with a local museum, and was super beautiful. You have a nice project. You have all the material there to continue and to make an exhibition in the museum, and also it's nice in the prisons when all the time the population of the prisons start to be bigger, the percent of the foreigners or the migrants backgrounds in the prisons. And it's also positive to see a migrant artist, like they have a positive example, like, yeah, I am a migrant, but I don't need to stall. I can create art. This is so empowerment. It's like, please, if you need help, you can always, the institution can learn from the diversity agents how to improve the communication with the minorities or with the international artists. The language and the diversity is not a problem. Thank you very much. It was an amazing presentation, really inspiring. I learned a lot also yesterday and today. And thanks a lot for organizing all this presentation.
Thank you, Pablo, for your feedback.
Thank you very much for the links. I will definitely check them out. Thank you.
I have a question to the artists. What was the biggest, or what was the challenge for you during this residency tryout?
I have been in the process longer than Sebastian, because me and Annika Persson-Åkerblom have been for over a year talking to Henrik about the prison and making a project with him. So I was in the process before, and I think Sebastian can talk. It was harder for him, I believe.
I don't recall any specific steps during the whole residency being really difficult, except the fact that I needed to leave too early because of COVID-19. But one thing that comes to my mind is when it's a small group and you have a schedule, and some of the people taking part of it is into it and others are not. So there is like, from an education point of view, how do you deal with such a situation when there's like a clear division, and maybe the ones that don't want to work that day start to annoy the other ones? And as a artist and a workshop facilitator, you're not really in the position to be like, calm down, sit down, blah blah blah. Not at all. Then you just have to be flexible and go with it and see. So this kind of uncertainty was maybe a bit difficult, but still not like a hardship, but manageable.
Thank you.